guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Tony Fergie. I want to thank all my subscribers, the old ones, the new ones, the ones that just keeps coming back because you love what you hear. Guys, I want to share this video with y'all. Y'all know once I say what that means. To me, this video is very controversial, but I want y'all to watch it and come back and tell me what you guys think.
The angel gave a young woman an important prophecy concerning South Africa. The young woman was Johanna Brandt of the Boer Nation, who lived in the early 1900s in South Africa. She was first visited by this angel, which she called the messenger, and was given the task of sounding the alarm and letting the world know what is coming. She explained what she saw will happen in South Africa just before the second coming of Christ, and shortly after the war breaks out. It will be terrifying, but that is how God will cleanse the country for a very specific purpose. According to both Sier van Rensburg and Johanna Brandt, Christians will flee from Europe on boats when the war and persecution in Europe gets too horrible to bear. By then, South Africa will have been cleansed and will be safe to receive them. There will also be enough food for whoever goes there. The prophecies of Johanna began when she was alone on the 1st of December 1916, praying beside the bed of her dying mother. Suddenly, a presence brighter than the sun entered the room and called to Johanna in a clear voice, "I am a messenger from heaven, who was sent to anoint you with the spirit of prophecy. I have something to tell you." She had to close her eyes, and then he showed her the time of her mother's death as proof of who he was. At that moment it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and she was shown the exact time that her mother would die. She had to wait until 5 o'clock that morning. She realized that she was on the brink of unutterable things, and had to gather every ounce of courage needed to face whatever it was. She sat down again. During the 3 hours she spent alone with the messenger, he gave her a few visions of which she asked the meaning. She wrote, "His order made 1,000 things rush through my mind. I was frightened and overwhelmed. Just as I thought I was going to die from fear, I heard the messenger say, 'Is ours, peace and strength.' And suddenly a wonderful feeling of calm came over me. The fear and the messenger had disappeared." At the exact time the messenger said she would, Johanna's mother died. A week later, on Thursday night of 7th December 1916, Johanna slowly awoke at 2 a.m. She tells in her own words, "Suddenly the darkness changed to the beauty of an ethereal light, and the restful voice of the messenger sounded in my soul with the same words that he addressed me with that first time." The angel continued, "Then you will write down what I am going to tell you. You were born for this hour, and your whole life was a preparation for the revelation that is about to be made." She was told that in the end time South Africa will play a very important role, one to cleanse the country, and God will use the Boer folk to do it. He will soon work to ready South Africa for the coming of the Christians who will flee from the persecution and the war in Europe, and all the trouble in South Africa will begin shortly after the coldest winter in many years. It had been an exceptionally cold winter in 2023. Johanna wrote, "God has mercy on South Africa, but there were also conditions and responsibilities that rested upon the people." Johanna relates, "I see a beautiful land being attacked by a seething hurricane. What is strange is the sudden unexpectedness of the storm. It is so terrifying that even the earth seemed to tremble and roar, while the lightning bolts and thundering of angry elements tore the clouds apart, and then hurling a shower of fire and hailstones down on the earth. There is blood everywhere, and devastation threatened to wipe everything off the face of the earth. I see human beings being driven like leaves before the wind and pursued to all parts of the earth. It was revealed to me by the messenger that the dangers that are waiting for South Africa will be 1,000 times worse if the black people interfere. It will be in the power of the different heads of the tribes to control their people and to explicitly forbid them to take part in anything that will happen." She then addresses the black people again. "They are not to fight among themselves, and they must not go out to murder and plunder the white people. When people are without shelter out in the open veldt across the country, and the elements are raging, and when the mighty rumble and roar shakes the earth, they must keep as calm as possible and stay where they are, and do nothing but defend themselves, because the judgment will be severe on anyone who ignores this command of the Almighty." This mighty rumble and roar also has to do with the passing of the rogue planet. Table Mountain will become an island in the sea when the land will tear open along the Milnerton Fault. Huge parts of Cape Town will disappear under the waves and millions will drown. Johanna saw the storm that will accompany the earthquakes as it rushes inland, where everything will be destroyed by the sheer force of it. But Dr. Maree saw what will happen to the coastal areas. South Africa will be the first to go into this enormous storm from outer space, but will also be the first to come out of it. But the specific warning aimed at the black people was actually printed and distributed among them by Johanna herself over 100 years ago. But they did not heed the warning nor care. Even today, such a warning addressed to the black people will fall on deaf ears. Johanna needed to know from the messenger as well, why then this specific message to all black nations in South Africa? His answer was unambiguous. Because in that time God will judge the whole nation of South Africa and take them through the crucible because of their abominable sins and iniquity. But the black nations must keep to themselves, and if they don't, much worse things will be waiting for them. She continued, the storm that threatened South Africa with destruction seemed to rage across the length and breadth of the country. The darkness of a terrible night descended over all, and many souls fervently prayed for death to release them, but all in vain. The start of the storm was strange and completely unexpected. It was an alarming eruption of unprecedented anger. After South Africa was totally destroyed, the storm abated just as suddenly. It was of short duration, despite the violence of it. She once again pleaded, "Please spare South Africa." The messenger looked at her and replied, "Do you really think that your country had no darkness to overcome? Do you not understand that if South Africa is spared these disasters, it cannot share in the coming glory? No, the scenes you have witnessed are unavoidable. The disasters threatening South Africa will gradually be caused by hatred and envy, violence, injustice and jealousy. The storm is an eruption that no one will be able to withstand, caused by long cultivated suspicion, mischief-making, hypocrisy, corruption, oppression and evil passions. All the evil that has built up over the years and kept suppressed in the heart of your people. In South Africa they bent the knee to the god of gold, with thoughts of revenge on the one hand and injustice, violence and greed on the other. The field has long ago been prepared and hundreds of thousands of hearts in South Africa for this storm that must come soon. This was prophesied 60 years after Johanna spoke to the messenger. She was fearful, but the messenger calmed her down. Do not fear. You saw that the outburst will be of short duration. You have been called to warn your people by seeing a live example of the scene. Prepare the home to unite in justice in an effort to break the might of the storm. The judgment that cannot be avoided can be softened. The terror can be shortened. The disasters cannot be avoided, but they can be reduced. It depends on the power of your call and whether the nation will be prepared to listen. Then he showed her how it will start. He said, "Look." She looked and saw a miniature native Asahai lying on the ground before her, which means the leader will be a youngish black person. The Asahai is the weapon of choice among certain black tribes. Then she saw the start of a strike that quickly spread across the country, and the letters XL hung high in the sky. Everything had grounded to a standstill. Even the big business houses were locked and deserted, and nothing was functioning any longer. Sier van Rensburg said that the trouble will start at the time when the yellow peaches in the Transvaal will be ripening. Therefore, it will be in the second half of February. He also said that the Third World War will already be well underway when these strikes will begin, and it will still be cold or still be winter. The strikes will be so intense that the whole of South Africa will be paralyzed. The seer said that during this country-wide strike, a black leader will die, and according to Johanna, it will be a youngish black person. While this is going on, the blacks organize in secret, and one night they assemble in Johannesburg.
The ANC may eventually lose the ability to grow and to renew itself. So therefore, I call upon you to return to the militancy of the ANC Youth League of the 1944 era, to go back to the militancy of the ANC Youth League of the 80s and the 90s. This is your heritage. That is where you belong. That is where we want to see the ANC Youth League returning to. We don't want to see an ANC Youth League that is docile. We don't want to see an ANC Youth League that is asleep during a revolution. You are the revolution.
Shoot to kill the mother, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa.
And while the coffin descends into the grave, the seer saw fires, which means revolution, erupting around it and quickly spread across the country. Then everything happens quickly and unexpectedly. The power is cut in and around the city. After that, Ioana saw them spread through the white residential areas and murdering the white people far and wide. Thousands upon thousands of whites will die during the Egyptian night that will descend over Johannesburg. She wrote, "When I saw in the vision all the mutilated bodies lying around me, I called out in shock, 'This cannot be, because there are not so many people in Johannesburg.' That was in 1916. The enormous task of warning the black people was laid on her shoulders. Little did she know that no warning then would have made any difference. The black people didn't heed the warning, but her visions are extremely important now. Ioana wrote, "The way in which they murdered the whites is too terrible for words. Like 165 years before at Blaukrans, the savage blacks grabbed the whites' babies by their feet and dashed their soft little heads against the nearest hard objects. The screams were terrible. Women and children, old and young, were mown down by the guns, assegais, knopkieries, bush knives, or any other weapon the blacks could lay their hands on. Any sort of weapon was used in these attacks, leaving the dead lying in their own blood. People tried to flee, but they were caught and mercilessly cut down and left to die. There was blood everywhere, on the pavements, in the houses, apartment buildings and shops. At daybreak, I saw how the black hordes moved towards Pretoria. That was the signal for the other blacks in the country to join in the murdering spree and systematically kill the whites in their own towns." She also heard them refer to this as our great day. Ioana relates that the messenger told her, he warned that because the judgment will be severe on any blacks who ignore this command of the Almighty, the blacks and coloureds, Muslims and people from other nationalities must know that when the first shockwaves hit the country, it won't be a normal storm. The initial attack from the blacks will be before the storm of which the messenger spoke first. It will be the storm that will kill the many millions of black people who attacked the whites, and it will be the storm that will rid the Boervolk of all its enemies, everyone who plans its demise. It will be a storm in which miracles will take place. It will be short-lived, but tens of millions will die." She continued, "He told me it will be the great preparation for the day of the Lord. Woe unto him who even think of benefiting from the general chaos, confusion and despair that will rule, or him that will exploit the helpless of the white people. And woe unto any black who contemplates murder and plunder, rape and destruction. These will have no chance at all to survive." The messenger further warned the black people of South Africa. They may have no hand in the shattering and suffering of the white people. Another person said he saw in a vision how the white people tried to flee. They were in their cars on a highway, but there was an obstruction to the front. The blacks descended upon the helpless whites, dragged them out of their vehicles and stabbed and hewed them down with machetes. Men, women, children and babies were all slaughtered. The messenger explained, "Small strikes will go over into bigger strikes, which will lead to revolution, and it will end in civil war, followed by famine and pestilence. All these will accumulate in a catastrophe that can't be described in words. When all this is happening, then the time of the end will be at the door, and you must be ready. Blow upon blow, destruction upon destruction, death, sorrow and violence. There will not be a pause. And then the storm will come." Ioana wrote, The strongest heart will shudder when the explosion comes, when nature's elements unleashes their fury on us, and the slumbering wrath bursts into rage and all-devouring fire. Woe, woe, South Africa! I saw everything in the spirit, and I nearly died from terror, and my hair turned white in one night. How will we be saved in this reality? This will be the forerunner for what is to happen shortly after in Europe, where a war will be raging as well. This devastating scene will shift quickly over to Africa to the north and will bring immense damage and destruction to that region. But Johanna saw hope for South Africa. There was one beam of light over the scene. It was the outstretched hand of God's mercy. Will we not grab it? I saw the power of the fast oncoming hurricane be broken by our own resistance. The direction of the hurricane was turned away from the places where it would have done the most damage, and there were thousands of us who completely forgot ourselves in an effort to save others. A column of beseeching prayers went up to heaven day and night, and it dispersed the dark clouds where they were gathering at their thickest. Deliverance came when we least expected it. It will end as quickly as it began. The fact that South Africa would not be as hard hit as the rest of the world was some consolation. The messenger told her that God had chosen South Africa as a special instrument through which the whole world would be blessed. He also issued a special warning with a specific purpose to the people of that country. But know this message of prophetic warning would be more readily believed by the simple and unspoiled people in the world. And when the time comes for the prophetic disasters for this country to be fulfilled, the world will see how well prepared you are and how capable you are to meet these problems head on.
Well, it's the whole setup. I mean, South Africa, we have a pattern of life which is different to any other country in the world. Because you have the white population, and which came to the country in 1652, and they are much more highly developed, coming from Europe with European backgrounds and traditions. And they have developed the country and have developed a highly civilized community. Whereas the Negro, the Bantu as we call them in Africa, in South Africa, is primitive, on a very primitive level. And the barrier in South Africa isn't so much color as civilization and economic.
Now the government's policy of apartheid, that policy, the guiding principle of this policy is to help the non-whites in South Africa to self-realization in their own territories and within their own communities, so that they can govern themselves. Gradually they'll be giving more and more power to govern themselves. Now that's what the guiding principle is, and that's what the white man in South Africa is doing.
Yeah, let me make this point clear. You say they want the Africans to develop themselves. And so will you allow the Africans to get their own governments and their own representations? Or will you like to give them the rules and the laws by yourselves?
No, we
force them and do everything.
We're not going to force them to do anything.
No, the point is, I know that in South Africa you have a government, and there is not a single African in the government. There are 9 million Africans as against to 2 million whites. Why is it that there is not a single African in the government of South Africa?
Well, there are 9 representatives for the...
But I mean, how can 9 Englishmen or 9 Europeans represent 9 million Africans? How can they know their problems and their ideas? These people are Africans. You believe in separateness. The Africans separate and the whites separate. Well, how then can it happen that you get whites representing Africans and ideas since they are separate?
They find it hard to understand the behavior of the great elephant. They are asking, how can the conqueror of nations be bewitched by a handful of jackals?
My subjects have become very daring, woman. Or could it be that it is your own question that echoes in their hearts?
You have given them land, wealth, and the status of generals and chieftains. All I'm asking is, what is the great elephant receiving in return for his generosity?
The power of their knowledge.
Then I can only hope that their knowledge is not a fabrication of lies.
What kind of a spirit is that? What valor is needed to slaughter innocent children?
You speak to me of an innocent? Those ships of yours, where do they take the children of Africa? Is there a monster in your world who feeds on our flesh? Huh?
Okay, guys. What did y'all think? These people must think we fools. Y'all do remember back in the day? This is for people in the Caribbean. Back in the day, every single week, they had that movie on, Shaka Zulu. Remember? And you would hear the voice of Shaka's mom when she goes to that cave and she calls him every time he was in trouble, and all you heard was Shaka. Oh, y'all. But then you turn around and try to claim the land and said, oh, that's your land because they were not there. How dare you enter our backyard and tell us that we're not home? So it's yours. Oh, the Bantus belong in West Africa, in East Africa, in Central Africa. Africa is Africa. Or Bantu scrolls that you stole and know all our secrets? Displace us? To make us believe that we don't have identity? Oh, we know the secrets of South Africa. Oh, you thought we didn't? We know the names that were changed to place the places in the Bible in different places, but we know where they are. We know where our father Abraham was buried and was taken from and placed elsewhere. Oh, you think we don't know? We're not going to get involved with the folks and whomever they are that wants to kill each other. But the secrets in South Africa, we know. We already know. We're just waiting. Anyways, guys, please comment what you think below. Please go over and join Black Re-Education TV. You will know what I know. Thank you guys for coming back. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for just supporting and letting me feel like I am welcome here. Have an awesome and wonderful day, and know that Tony loves you.